Hello, everybody. Amazing to be here. The Chicago product community is deeply personal for me. I've worked in Chicago for a long time. I know a lot of people in the room. I think I've worked with at every single company, at some places in the chairs here. So I'm excited to talk about AI and how that's changing product. So as Ben said. Little bit of a lag. As Ben said, I'm Dan. I help teams reinvent the way they work with the power of AI. Over time, technology changes the way we do things, the way we collaborate, the way we build products for our customers. I'm going to talk about some of those things today. And I used to work at some other companies, Google, McKinsey, Atlassian. And when I was at Google, Sundar Pichai used to say, AI is going to be more impactful than fire. More important for humanity than fire. That's a pretty bold statement. Now, I think I've grown to believe him, but imagine for a second, we're all hunter-gatherers, cavemen people, whatever, and we're sitting in our caves eating nuts and berries and sushi. And caveman Sam Altman comes up to us and gives us fire. Now, that would have been pretty amazing, a pretty powerful new tool, but think for a second about what would have happened right then. We would have set everything on fire. We would have set our hair on fire, our kids on fire, our pelts on fire. We probably learned to cook food by accident. Learning to handle AI is going to be as challenging as learning to handle fire. Preparing for this AI future might be the most important challenge our teams face today, right? But you all know this. You're product managers. You know how to take AI and make it better for your products, for your customers, for your users. All we have to do is take all our fancy interfaces and throw them out and replace them with a chatbot. That's all I got. Chicago. I'm kidding. That's not even a real microphone. So you know that figuring out how to take AI and make it useful is something that you spend your whole day thinking about. And actually, you have an advantage in the world that a lot of other people don't have because product managers are the original prompt engineers. Like for decades, a century, we've been writing what we want from our technology in requirements documents. That's all prompts are. Right. So what I'm going to talk about today is not so much education for you, but I'm going to help you understand the things that are confusing to the users that you support, to your bosses, your stakeholders, your investors, and some of your coworkers. So we're going to dig into AI, some of the things that makes it hard, and some of the tools that I use to help people understand how to take AI, know what it does and what it doesn't do, and figure out how to make it useful. Now, the first thing that's confusing is AI even real, or is this just another hype cycle? Is it a buzzword? Is there going to be a bubble? Is that bubble going to crash? That's normal. It happens with every new technology. And this is a video here. It reminded me a little like AI because it's kind of beautiful. Three woolly mammoths charging through the snow. But it's beautiful, but it's also big and scary, and it's coming right at us. Right? This is an AI-generated video, and this is the prompt that brought it to life. It's from a product called Sora from the same company that made ChatGPT. Not available to the public yet, but I had the chance to play around with it, and it's pretty amazing. So every new technology goes through this hype cycle. And the reason for that hype cycle is at first, everyone's excited about all the amazing possibilities in the future. But then some of those possibilities don't happen as quickly as people imagine. So then people start thinking, okay, well, none of that stuff is ever going to happen. And so everyone gets immediately frustrated, and that's what causes a crash. And one of the reasons for that crash is that people aren't specific enough about what's coming and what's not coming, right? When people talk about AI, they are talking usually very general about lots and lots of different things. So I started trying to figure out, like, what even is AI? I wrote a blog post at the end of last year, and I wanted a cool header image. So I said, hey, Midjourney, give me a picture of AI in 2023. And it gave me this. I guess a beautiful robot with like two faces. There's probably a third face on the other side that we don't get to see. That's the mean one. And it's thinking all these colorful thoughts, and it's in this room with all these levers and switches so it can control the world, right? And the reason AI describes AI like that is because that's how a lot of people describe AI. It's this robot with a bunch of colorful thoughts and levers and switches. The problem with that is when you think of AI like this ambiguous robot, instead of a thing that solves a specific problem, that's going to get you into trouble because everyone in the conversation is going to have a different understanding of what you're talking about. That's not a new problem. It happens every time there's some new piece of technology. 10 years ago, I was talking to a guy named Carl Bass. He was the CEO of Autodesk. They make design software. And Carl said, people don't say robot. I said, Carl, I'm pretty sure I've heard him say it. And he said, no, what I mean is consumers don't say robot when they buy things. Because as soon as we give a robot a specific job to do, we also change its name. Like an ATM, not a robot bank teller. Or is it? Right? And the Keurig on your kitchen counter in the office break room, is that a robot barista? Maybe, right? As soon as we take a technology and make it solve a specific problem, we give it a specific name, right? And then it's super clear that Keurigs are here and they exist, and you can buy them at a store and they make coffee, and all the other kinds of robots are still imaginary, right? And AI is like that too. I've been studying new technology for a long time. Right, 1985, I was a kid in a trailer park in Tampa, Florida, surrounded by drugs and crime and all kinds of bad stuff. And I had no prospects for the future until one day I discovered a computer, and it changed my life, right? And by 2020, I was a leader at Google working on a product that had 2 billion customers. That was pretty cool. And the reason I was able to do that is because I got really good at navigating new technology when it came. During that 30-year span, we had 6 of the biggest transformations the world ever saw. I still remember getting the first shipment of PCs we ever got. We got like 9 of them. We put them on all our desks. There was no network. We couldn't communicate between them. We could do things, save them in files, but then we couldn't find our files later. But for me, that was fun. I learned how to use the computer, and I taught the people around me how to use the computer. And then I did that 5 more times. We got the internet, and then BlackBerry put phones in our pockets, and AWS put our stuff in the cloud. And this kept happening. By 2020, we got remote work, whether we wanted it or not. And now we have AI. These are just technology cycles, and they all go through that hype cycle. And so I've gotten really good at helping the people around me figure out how to navigate hype cycles. AI is the one we're going through right now, and robotics is coming probably 5 years after that. So 2030 product camp, sign me up, robots. I'll bring a robot. Okay, so the problem with hype cycles, the biggest problem to solve is that people talk about the new technology like it's a piñata. It's like AI is that piñata right now, and there's all this cool stuff inside. No one's really sure what's in there. So I'll just whacking at it with a stick, like a 9-year-old at a birthday party. Right? It's my job to crack open the piñata and show you the stuff that's inside that you can use right now and separate that from the theoretical stuff that might come later or maybe will never come. Right? So the first lesson we're going to learn today is that if you get more specific about AI when you talk about it, you'll escape that piñata trap. Your users will understand what they're getting from you and when. Your stakeholders and your investors will understand what you're building for them right now and what you're sort of just thinking about on the back burner. That distinction is really important. Now, the next thing that's confusing for people in the world is that some people are saying we've been doing AI for years, and then other people are saying AI is this brand new thing that's going to change the world, maybe destroy it. Right? How can AI be old and new at the same time? It's not. They're 2 completely different things, right? On one side, we have recognition algorithms. I'm going to talk about those a little bit more. And then on the other side, we have generative algorithms. And those 2 things are very different. Sure, they have some fundamental characteristics under the covers that are the same, but they're also just both using math. We don't just say, hey, we're implementing math in our product right now. And so I encourage you not to say that with AI either, except in marketing. It will be helpful in marketing. So first, let's split these things apart a little bit. So first, we have recognition algorithms. And the easiest way to know what a recognition algorithm is doing is we go to the airport. send your suitcase through that scanner, and it looks at your scanner and tries to decide, is there a knife inside or an equally dangerous bottle of shampoo? And it knows if there's a knife inside your suitcase because it's looked at millions of suitcases, right? But doesn't always know. Sometimes it's confused, and there's a guy sitting there to help it out when it's confused, when it's not sure, because there's always some new thing that could come out, a new toothbrush, a new GoPro camera that the scanner's never seen before. It's not sure what to do. And so the person opens the suitcase and tells the algorithm, and then it knows next time, right? This thing never does its work all the way by itself. And none of the algorithms you use should be completely on autopilot either. You always need the person at the scanner. That's especially true as we start using AI for intelligence work. Now, every one of you has a TSA scanner at your office, no matter what your role is or what your job is or what products you're building. Imagine you have someone, you're looking at features of your product and you're trying to decide, do they drive growth in my product or they hamper growth in my product? It's the same pass-fail test, the exact same thing. Maybe you're not doing that with fancy cameras and algorithms. Maybe you're just doing it with your brain and your experience, right? But that's what recognition algorithms are doing. It's just looking at something and deciding if it's good or bad, or in one bucket or the other. Right? And over time, you're going to take more of those things that you're doing manually and give them to recognition algorithms. And that'll be good. It'll help you scale. But I'm going to stop calling those things AI because they're not artificial. We made them and they're not intelligent. It's just an algorithm that's learning over time from the things that it sees and us flagging thumbs up or thumbs down. Those are recognition algorithms. The other thing that's making AI a lot more popular right now is the GPT, right? Now, everyone probably knows this in this room, but I want to dig into these words because they're important, right? Generative pre-trained transformers. It's generative. It's making something new. It's not search, right? We're going to talk about that a little bit more. Next, it's pre-trained. It doesn't work in real time, right? It's scanned a bunch of stuff. GPT 4.0 was finished in April. It doesn't know anything newer than that. And then it transforms the thing you start with, your requirements document, and turns it into the results. Now, that's what GPTs are. We're going to show you how it works. Right? We're going to try a little experiment here, and we'll see how it goes. I'm going to give you the beginning of a sentence, and you're going to tell me just the one next word after this. Once upon a... Awesome. That was amazing. That was almost 100% of you, right? Now, that one was probably a little too easy. But there's two things we can learn from this. The first is that AI is consensus driven, right? It hears the loudest answer in the room, right? Somebody might have said something that wasn't timed. Somebody might have said something that's way more profound, creative, right? But AI only knows the loudest answer, the most popular one, right? Not the best. Those are different. The second thing we can learn is that AI is doing this one word at a time, stepping its way through content one word at a time. And that's why it's terrible at jokes. Right? Because AI, when you write a joke, you need to know the punchline of the joke so you can set it up gradually. That's what makes it funny. And AI can't do that because it only knows one word at a time. It doesn't find out the end of the punchline until the end of the joke. And you can't write funny jokes like that. So two things, consensus driven and stepping through one word at a time. Right? We're going to do this one more time. Let's see. Tell me the next word after this. Once upon a time. There. That was good. Like maybe 40% of you said there, and the other 60% of you are silent, not sure, because there's a lot of choices, right? Sometimes there's not a single correct answer, right? And that happens with AI too. And when AI isn't sure what to do next, it uses statistics, right? And I was pretty sure that about 40% of you were going to say there because I've asked a lot of audiences this question, and that's the most likely answer. Right? That's what AI is doing too, choosing the most likely possibility. But now, this is a pretty low number, right? If we were taking a test in school, that's clearly failing, right? But it's the highest number it's got, so that's what AI is going to use. And that's an important thing to notice too. When you're using AI, start asking it what its confidence is. You'll start to understand, like, is this just a shot in the dark, or are there like 100 sources on the internet that all agree? That's important. Okay, we're going to pretend you said once upon a time there and do it one last time. Once upon a time there was. Awesome. confident was. That's amazing. That was 100% of you again. You people are pretty good at this. I think some of you might be sentient. Okay, so that's how AI works, right? We can learn when people say AI, they usually mean one of these two things. And so as you start putting these things into your product, start creating a stronger separation between those two things when you talk about it. And inside each of these buckets, there's a bunch of types too. We'll talk about that a little bit more for generative. Now let's dig into why is AI wrong sometimes, right? Like I showed you, AI is just a word prediction machine. And sometimes there are tons of choices. Sometimes there's no clear single answer, right? And this isn't new. We saw 15 years ago or so, we got autocorrect or autocomplete on our cell phones. When you send a text message, your phone instantly says, if you type can't, it said, did you mean can't wait or can't believe or can't remember? And sometimes you're like, no, that's not what I meant. You type your own word. Sometimes you pick one of them and it makes you 1% faster in sending text messages, maybe 3%. Even though AI is wrong, or even though autocorrect is wrong, like 95% of the time, it still accelerates the work you're trying to get done just by a little bit. AI is going to be like that too. It's not going to be right every single time. It's just a little turbo boost. Now, autocorrect knows the likelihood of those choices because it's looked at a bunch of text messages. Just like our once upon a time story, it figured out the probability and it showed you the top 3 things, right? And you pick them or you ignore them. You do this every single day, and that's normal, right? A lot of people imagine AI like this. This is Vicky, the positronic brain in that movie, I, Robot. A lot of people imagine AI like this brain in the cloud, thinking all this stuff. AI is just a big spreadsheet. It's this, right? It's given any string of content, the probability that the next thing should be there. That's all AI is doing. And you can look stuff up on this list anytime you want in your product. But then what you do with the information you find there is your problem, not AI's problem, right? We'll talk about that more. Back to autocomplete for a second. Would you let autocomplete send a message to your friends without you? No, of course not. That's absurd. Like, how would it even know what to say, right? Autocomplete is a text assistant, not a text automation tool. That's going to be really important when you think about what your relationship with AI is and the AI that you put in your products. It's an assistant, not an automation tool. Also, sometimes it gives you the wrong answer, and sometimes the wrong answer isn't as wrong as you think. Let me show you an example. 11 years ago, somebody was trying to make pizza and they were having a problem. So naturally, they went to the internet for advice. My cheese slides off my pizza too easily. What should I do? On Reddit. This is not AI. This is just a person asking random strangers for advice. Luckily, 267 people rushed to this guy. And one of the answers was so great, 167 people upvoted it to the #1 answer. Right? So clearly, this is the best possible way to make pizza, right? To get the cheese to stick out, I would add 1/8 of a cup of Elmer's glue. He's not wrong. The internet emphatically agrees that this is the best answer to this question. Now, AI just learns from the internet. Sometimes the internet is great. So AI didn't mess up here. It's doing exactly what it will keep doing forever, right? It's reporting the highest confidence answer that it stumbled into. It's just that sometimes the best possible answer isn't a very good one. That's going to be important for us to figure out how to navigate. Okay, let's talk quickly about why all of a sudden this is such a big deal. Like, what's changed in the world that made us talk about doing this like 3 times a week, right? The reason is these things. Right, this is a GPU. They're inside all our screens. They make our videos go faster. And we have a lot of screens in the world, all of our phones, our computers, our tablets, our TVs, that projector, all these things. And the more of these GPUs you make, the cheaper they get to use, right? It's got commoditization of hardware. And so as these things got cheaper to use, people started making better autocorrect models, right? So the first one was Google Transformer. It was made in 2017 with about 50 million pieces of content. Right? That was a lot more than they used for autocorrect models, right? And so it started to make moderately better results. I had the opportunity to use Transformer back then. I took this picture and I uploaded it and said, please describe this picture. And it said, a couple of giraffes are sitting here. I'm no giraffeologist, but I'm pretty sure that's a. So everyone went back to the drawing board. Google made another one called Google BERT and then later Gemini, and OpenAI, the ChatGPT people, they came onto the scene with GPT-1 and 2 and 3. And by GPT-3, they were using 175 billion examples of content as opposed to 50 million. And at that point, the answers coming back from it started to be so good, they were surprising even the scientists that had been working with this. The scientists thought that they would have to build like custom models for each like use case, right? An expert driven model, an industry specific model, or both. And then a generalist model so that it just understands things like grammar. But all of a sudden, these models just started to understand large amounts of everything. And that was pretty amazing. But the problem with it at this point is we have an amazing algorithm here that answers amazing questions at scale, but it's trapped behind an API. To use it, you have to be a software developer. You have to have a team of software developers. You have to know what some of this crazy stuff means. And most people in the world are not software developers. So we had this amazing piece of functionality that was trapped behind this confusing gate until, as you all know, November of 2022. And that's when OpenAI put this chat interface top of their language model. And now anyone in the world could use this model, right? Anyone in the world could ask it any question that they wanted. Anyone in the world did. In 5 days, they had 1 million users. And that's amazing. And for perspective, Instagram took 2.5 months, Facebook 10 months, Netflix 3.5 years. Currently, Meta is claiming that Threads accelerated faster, but they just took Instagram users. So that's 5 days is pretty amazing. You're right. We've never seen product growth like that. And in the next 61 days, it got 100 million users, right? In 2 months, we had 100 million users using something that they never heard of before November 20th. And that's pretty amazing, right? We've never seen product growth like this. And these weren't just people that used it one time. These are people like building it instantly into their workflow, right? Software developers instantly using code generation, and translation people instantly doing translations, and people just trying to write documents, polishing their documents and making them a little bit better. That was amazing. They kept going, right? In April of this year, OpenAI released GPT 4.0, right? And that's 4 and then the letter O for some weird reason. They used 13 trillion examples of data to make that model. So in 7 years, we went from 50 million to 13 trillion. That's a 260,000 times improvement. That's amazing, right? And the responses are getting so great now. It's the scientists were already surprised, right? And we're continuing to be surprised every day. So I took that same picture from 2017 and I uploaded it to ChatGPT 4.0, and this is the description I get back. You don't have to read all that, but every word on this page is perfect and accurate. And it even estimates the size of the bird, even though there's no information in here about size at all, except the normal width of a piece of string, right? That's pretty amazing. And there's no giraffes on the table. I go through that timeline not because I want you to remember those numbers or know any of that, but what I want you to notice is that we tripped a threshold of amount of content that made it suddenly dramatically better than it ever was before. And so as you try to build your own models or start fine-tuning things, pay a lot of attention to how much data you have to learn from, right? Because that's an important distinction. Okay, I said ChatGPT a bunch of times. I want to be fair to my friends at Google and the others in the sea. As you know, there's ChatGPT from OpenAI. What you might not know is that it was built in partnership with Microsoft, sort of, right? They needed servers to run on and places to store the data. So Microsoft gave them those servers and storage space in exchange for sort of equity share, right? And so now in the Microsoft suite of tools, you can see Copilot popping up, right? Mm-hmm. Copilot is the ChatGPT language model with a Microsoft Enterprise skin on top of it, which is pretty useful. Microsoft understands what enterprises need from data control, and all that stuff will be super. Then we have Gemini from Google. It's called Gemini because it does images and text together in one model, right? Like twins. And what's great about that is Gemini is going to be really good when you hold your phone up to the world and let the camera see a picture of something, and then you ask it questions about what it sees. Google's putting a lot of their eggs in that basket. If you have an Android phone, you'll start to see some of that already. Next, we have Claude.ai from Anthropic. It's just like ChatGPT, but it architecturally has some other things to try to remove some bias and error from it. It's also better at reporting the source of the data. So if you're doing research, I like Claude the best for that. And then one more, Llama from Meta, right? And what's unique about Llama is that it's open source. So you can make a copy of it, modify it how you want, keep it on your own private network, all that stuff. For those of you taking pictures, at the end of this, I'll have a QR code. If you scan that QR code, I'll send you the important slides. Okay, on top of those four, there's a sea of tools here. There's some of your logos are probably on this slide, right? There's so many AI-powered tools now that you can't even read the logos on this slide. AI is just the new way we make software now, right? It's just, there's no going back. It's just the new way that people interact with the information around us. There's so much information now in the world, you can't look at things one piece of information at a time anymore. And AI will help you manage that sea of information because that sea is growing. Now, all that's really general stuff. You could explain that to any of your users, regardless of what industry you're working in. But now I want to get a little bit specific about product people for a second. How is AI going to change the product industry? Right? I wanted to know that also. So the first thing I do when I want to know something is I go to ChatGPT and I ask it, right? As a product manager, what are 10 ways that AI might change my work? And the important thing I want you to see here is that I said, give me 10 ways. I didn't say, give me a way that AI is going to change the healthcare software, HIPAA compliant way I make software for patients in a hospital that have cancer. Like, I'm not a fan of prompt engineering, right? I just want to ask it a bunch of things, and I want to pick the thing from the list that's most like what I was looking for. Because there's a lot of stuff in my head that's not going to make it into my prompt, right? So always ask it for lots of ways. I often will say, give me 25 ways. Just like when I'm Google searching, I don't pick the first option. Sometimes I pick something on page 2, because I know a lot of stuff that the algorithms don't know yet. So I want choices. So I encourage you to do this often, like once a quarter, ask it. And you'll see how its answers are changing, how it's getting more specific. And that will help you. So I actually did ask it this question. I'll share some of the answers. The first, AI-assisted requirements gathering, right? So AI can recognize patterns in all your user feedback and your reviews and behavior tracking, right? And it can use that to generate recommendations for prioritizing features that better meet those journeys. Right? The next one might be personalized user experiences, recognizing patterns in that same user data, preferences, and their history, and then generating recommendations for specific interfaces, for specific, more diverse personas in your user base. Third one, maybe ethical AI and compliance, right? You might use AI to look for patterns in the way you're writing software and things you're doing with data, and use that to generate recommendations for improving the ethical compliance and privacy use in the software that you're building, right? These are 3 ways. I encourage you to ask it and pick your own favorite 3, right? And this will continue to change over time, and this will help you see how AI is expected to change your world, for your users, for yourself. But the actual thing I want you to see in this thing is that there's a pattern here. Right. First, AI looked at some existing set of data and it tried to figure out in that data what was good and what was bad. Right. It did the TSA scanner thing. And then once it knew that, it generated recommendations for what you should do given that data. Right. It looks at patterns, it tries to learn some things from those patterns, and then it gives you recommendations for what you might do. It's doing the once upon a time story thing. I said recommendations, right? I didn't say have it do it. It's just giving you advice, and you might ignore that advice sometimes, just like you ignore autocorrect. Recognition followed by recommendation. This is going to be a pattern that you see so often. You're going to get concerned when you don't see it, right? This is the new way we make data-driven decisions. We run algorithms and have those algorithms try to recognize trends in the data. And then we use generative algorithms to try to generate some recommendations about what we might do to optimize our flow, our users, our products. One way to think about AI as that recommendation partner is to think about AI like it's an intern. Imagine you hire an intern for the summer and they're super cool. You're excited to work with them. They're excited to join your team, right? And the first thing you do is you give them an assignment, right? You give them some instructions and then they disappear for a while and then they come back and say, hey, I did that thing. And you look at it and you decide, can I use this or not? Sometimes you send it back to them. You give them better instructions. They learn a little bit. They try again. Their results get better. And you keep doing that. And by the end of the summer, you understand how to give them the right instructions. You understand what they're capable of and what they're not, right? And they understand how to understand your instructions, right? And AI is like that too. AI is just like the intern that you've hired for all the summers going forward. Give them some instructions, they do some work, you look at the results, decide if it's usable or not, and go through that loop as many times as you need to, right? And as you build products for your users, as you start inserting AI into the interfaces that you're building, don't forget about this step. Because that's critically important, because we live in that world where people are suggesting that you put glue in your pizza, right? And AI is going to make some mistakes sometimes, so you always need that review layer. Now, here's what happens if you don't do that. This is a story, let's see. The American Bar Association Code of Conduct, Rule 5.3, it says that if you are using a non-lawyer assistant, right, the non-lawyer, it's your responsibility as the lawyer to make sure everything they touch is done at the standard that you would have held to, right? That's the law for lawyers. Now, I don't know if anybody's ruled that like AI counts as a non-lawyer assistant, but I think it ought to. I think all of us should think about AI like it's our own non-lawyer assistant, right? And it's our responsibility to evaluate the stuff that they did, look at some of its sources, make sure it's true, you know, fix our prompts if we didn't prompt it well enough. Now, here's what happens if you don't do that. This is a court case some of you might have heard of, Mata versus Avianca. Mata is a passenger on an airline, and Avianca is an airline. And the beverage cart hits Mata's knee, and he causes some damage, so he sues the airline. The lawyer in his case says, hey, ChatGPT, I need case precedent examples. Give me some cases that side with me in this argument. ChatGPT goes boop, 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 and gives him 5 cases. So he submits those cases into evidence. And that day, the lawyer learned an important lesson that AI generates text. It's not a search engine. It's not a search pre-trained transformer. It's a generative pre-trained transformer. Mm-hmm. It's hallucinating every single time, not just the times you don't like the answer. Now, when you're asking it a question that's been discussed thousands of times on the internet and everybody agrees, then the made-up answer is going to look like real answers. But if there's any obscurity at all to what you're asking, it's going to fabricate the best answer it has. And sometimes that's not going to be right. In this case example, it was probably information from mock trials, or textbooks, and things like that. Those are cases, but ChatGPT doesn't know if it's valid or not. AI is an assistant, not a replacement. That's an important thing for us all to understand. Now, all of you know you can ask GPT questions. Let's talk about some of the other things, right? Because AI can do a lot more than just pick the next word in a story, right? We can have it answer questions, because answering a question is just predicting the word that comes after the question, right? We can have it improve the emails that we send to customers. We can have it improve the software code that we write, generate better pictures, translate words into Spanish. All of these things are just content prediction exercises, right? And these are 6 real things that you can use right now. These are 6 real things that I'm already using every single week, right? These are very reliable things that you should at least be using to accelerate your content generation, your document writing, your brainstorming, your communication with customers that don't speak English, your, I don't know, picture generation stuff for marketing or wherever. All of these things are super helpful. And so I want you to explore these things, not just in your products, but for yourself in your own workflow. Now I start talking about all these things that AI can do, and then some people start thinking, is AI going to take our work away from us? Like, is my job at risk? I have good news and bad news. The bad news is, yes, AI is going to take your work away from you. But the good news is you get to decide what work to give it, right? And you all have too much work anyway. Like the amount of work that's expected of you is continuing to balloon as we have more information in the world. We work on more projects at once. We work in more diverse user bases. All of those things are continuing to grow, but you still have the same 40, 50, 55, 62 hours a week, right? And that problem is never going to go away unless you use AI to help you out with that. And then also, what is work anyway? I said work 8 times just then, and that's another one of those piñata words, right? When we say work, it means a lot of different stuff to a lot of different people. And so when I started studying teams, I started to realize there's actually a very specific answer to this question. And I call it the hierarchy of human expertise. Right? If we look at any of our jobs in any industry, any of our users' jobs in their industry, everyone is doing 6 things. The first most basic kind of work, and it's at the bottom of this pyramid because there's more of it, this is process, tasks, the things on your to-do list, probably the stuff in your job description. Right? This is getting work done. After we start doing that, we start talking about the work. Right? We start trying to discuss it with our stakeholders. We start trying to ask our customers what they need from us. And then we start investigating problems. We start looking for stuff that's broken. What's falling off the rails? What needs our help? What's done? Right? These are the first 3 kinds of work. And if you look at your last week or your last month or your life, right, you're probably spending most of your time in these 3 layers. Right? That's what work looks like for most of us. And that's great. Those things are important, but there's 3 more kinds of work. Right? Because above that white line, now we have to solve issues. We found issues lower on the pyramid, but now we have to do something about them. Right? We have to fix the broken stuff, right the ships, triage the problems. And the problem with problems is they can be different every single time. And that means they're not in the training data. AI can't solve a brand new problem that's never been seen before. Actually, it can't solve a brand new problem that's never been seen before thousands of times, right? And a lot of the problems that you face aren't that common, right? Your job is problem solving. That's your most important job. And there's an infinite amount of problems for us to solve in the future, right? So AI never completely takes our job. It's just that this problem solving layer might start to get bigger. And that's good. Also, once we're done solving problems someday, then we try to discover new things so we can become a better expert, right? We can make more intellectual property for our company. We can spend more time at an event like this, learning new stuff about AI, collaboration. And finally, we imagine, right? Imagining is the hardest kind of work. And as product people, we get to imagine more than people in most jobs, right? But even us, we don't get to do that as much as we want to, right? Imagining that's the only thing that changes the world, that like makes something new, that makes the world better. And that white line in the middle is super important because AI can't do the things at the top ever, no matter how good it gets, right? As long as it's learning from training data, it's biased toward all the things that the world has already seen. And these things are new. And so over time, this stuff, AI will do more and more of these things, and other algorithms will do more and more of these things, and one day robots, right? But these things will start to grow on your team. Those will be the kinds of things you spend your day doing. People are here to manage the chaos, right? And as we start talking about that pyramid, there's an immediate opportunity for improvement, right? Because AI is really, really great at this layer. It's built on language models, right? And that makes it really good at managing words. You know who else manages words? Us, a lot. This is a study from McKinsey. 68% of most knowledge workers' time is spent in meetings, email, and chat. I think since COVID, that number's probably low, right? Microsoft did a similar study. They said 64%, right? So 2/3 of our week is spent communicating, and 1/3 of our week is spent building value for our customers. That might be backwards, right? So AI is going to help with this because AI is really good at information sharing, right? The thing that AI happens to be best at is also the thing that we all spend the most time doing. That's going to be really handy. It's actually handy already. Once we went online for our meetings, we got the ability to have online note takers, right? Whatever tool you're using, if it's Meet or Teams or Zoom, do people still use WebEx? There's an online note taker. And if it's not there, or if you don't like the privacy policy of the one that you use, there are third-party tools as well, Otter and Fireflies, right? These record your discussions. They keep track of like what was said and what wasn't said, who was in the discussions, what did we decide as a group, right? It helps you figure out like what conversations are you having over and over and over again. When a new person joins your team, they can catch up on old conversations. That's super helpful. I use Otter all the time. I've recorded most of my discussions since January of this year, and the repository of information there is gold. It's amazing. Right now, this is a summary of a note from a conference preparation call I had. This is not the one I had with Ben, but it's a similar one with a guy named Diego. And it captured exactly what the event organizers needed. It captured my action items. I was sure nothing would slip through the cracks. It's like the best project manager that I ever worked with, following me around every day, right? Keeping track of what I've said and what I've done, and it's amazing. I'm actually using Otter right now, and I'm recording what I say on this little box here. It's not uploading or anything, but I'll upload that into Otter, and it will give me a perfect summary of everything I said today. If you scan that QR code that I told you about, I will send you the notes from this session. You don't have to take notes anymore. Like, your notes are garbage anyway. AI is way better. All of us are having all these discussions, and all those words and all those meetings are just getting lost into the air. All of these decades of intellectual property just getting like thrown out. And so AI is going to help that. Now, that's going to be pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about it, but it's only the second most impactful thing I think we can use AI for. The first is this, and I have a video which might have sound, we'll see. I'll let it speak for itself. We live in a global world. People in this world deserve to collaborate in the language most comfortable for them, and AI makes this possible. Vivimos en un mundo global. Las personas en este mundo merecen colaborar en el idioma que les resulte más cómodo, y la IA esto posible. 私たちはグローバルな世界に住んでいる。この世界の人、自分にとって最も快適な言語で協力する価値があります。そして AI がこれを可能にします。One more time in English. We live in a global world now, and people deserve to collaborate in whatever language is comfortable for them. Now, there was a little choppiness and lag right there, but that's only because we're on the guest network. Like in normal life, that's not there at all. We can instantly start collaborating with people that speak any language. And that's going to be amazing in our products, in our collaboration, on our global teams, right? There are 6.6 billion people in the world that don't speak English at all, right? That's a lot of people, right? There's another billion people that will speak it, but it's not their most comfortable language, right? AI is going to democratize access to all the information. Imagine being a kid in Uganda, and now all of a sudden you can just read any textbook that's ever been written, right? Or collaborate with any person on any team, regardless of what language you speak or what country they're in. That's going to be amazing, right? We're about to have a switch on our computer that just says, I just want to read and listen to Hindi. Anytime anyone's collaborating with me, just instantly flip it. And I'm going to speak Hindi, but if they want to choose Mandarin or English, that's up to them, right? We're about to have just instant, seamless translation across our teams. And that's the kind of thing that's going to be more impactful for humanity than fire. We're all managing in a world of more. There's exponential growth of everything. And you can't survive in a world like that without using technology to help you. All of us have a computer on our desk or in our laptop bag. All of us use the internet every day. All of us have a phone probably in our hand right now, right? None of us could imagine doing work without these three things. 2 years ago, when I keynote Product Camp again, write that down, I will have, right? You won't be able to imagine doing work without an AI assistant helping you, knowing all the stuff that you're struggling with, knowing the stuff that you're thinking about, right? This is just going to become a normal part of collaboration, right? And as we start to use that AI assistant, right, we're going to start to give some of the work at the bottom of the pyramid over to those algorithms. And as we do that, we'll start shrinking the bottom half of our pyramid. And if we do that, we'll have more time to solve problems before they pile up and create bigger ones. We do that, we'll have more time to discover new things. We can become better experts, so that we can create new stuff that changes the way our industry runs. We do that, we'll be able to imagine more things that can change the world, more things that can make the world more diverse, better balanced, and fair for everybody, more everything, right? Our pyramid of work is upside down, and AI is going to help us with that. If we flip this pyramid of work, then we as people will have more time to solve, discover, and imagine new products with the power to change the world. That's all I got. Thank you, Brad. This will give you AI notes, a PDF, and the recording. The recording will be on Product Camp. And I'd love to connect. I'll be around all day so we can have spin-off conversations. Thank you.